Welcome back to part 3 of this tutorial. Alright, so let's start adding the textures. So for the cupboard faces, all the cupboards, they're just going to be charcoal. So we're making sure that in our render setup we are on Corona. That's my preferred rendering engine. Alright, we'll go click M for our material editor. And we'll start by making a Corona material. Let's make this charcoal. We'll give it a reflection of about 0.8 for the reflection and glossiness. And we'll just apply it to all our cupboards. And we'll also add it to our shelves. Cool. So I don't like to keep it just a plain color. What I like to do on some of my surfaces is kind of bring in a dirt map along with this, just to give it a more realistic texture. But we'll start doing that towards the end when we have applied the textures to all our surfaces. So for our walls, we'll just create a normal white surface. I normally make that reflection about 7, glossiness about 7, but once again we'll also add a bit of a wall texture onto that in a moment. So let's just select all our walls. Alright, for our window, to make a window material, we make the reflection 1, our refraction 1, and then we've got a nice glass material. We'll apply that to the glass. The window frame we'll make black. So I don't do pure black, 0, I normally do it at about 2. And we'll make this quite glossy, maybe about 8 and 8. Alright. For our door handles, we'll make this in our stainless steel, so we'll just bring in another Corona material. You usually should label all of these just to, when your scene becomes a bit more complicated, it does help. So we'll just say glass, wall, we'll just say surfaces, kitchen surfaces. Window frame. And this will be our handles. Alright, so in order to make a nice stainless steel texture, we'll make this slightly grey. Put the reflection at 1, glossiness at 1, that's fine. We'll make this about 20 for Fresnel. Alright, so that might be a bit too strong, so we'll bring this down to about 9. And we'll give it a bit of a, you can see it kind of splitting up there, which I do like to do with my textures. I'm just playing around with this to see what looks good. Alright, that should be fine for now. That looks good. So we'll apply that to all of those, all instances. And then for our splashback, so our splashback is just plain white gloss. So we'll add a corona material, we'll make this white. Once again, don't make your surfaces completely white for rendering purposes. So I'll usually just click about here, 235. And it's glossy, so we'll make it 1 and 1, just to, I do exaggerate sometimes just to get the full effect when rendering. Alright, let's just select this internal cupboard here. Cool. Alright, so I'm just going to find a texture for the countertop. Alright, so for the countertop, I've got this magnolia quartz. I'll just apply that as a bitmap. Just put it on that surface and that one. Let's just make this full reflective and glossy as well, which I always find looks nice for a countertop. And then what we need to do is UV map this. As you can see, it's all stretched, so we'll add a UV map, a UVW map, make it a box, and then you start adjusting just so it's not stretched out. Cool. And we can copy that map and apply it to this one, so we have the same. Alright, let's see how that's looking. Cool. So let's add a, let's just finish up these walls here. Otherwise we'll get a bit of a blue reflection when we render. So we don't really see this in the view, so we'll just make those all white. We can give our door handles the same texture as our kitchen unit handles. And then we're going to start adding the ceiling and the flooring. So for that, we've got our floor. Let's just copy this and put it at 2.7 for our ceiling. For the ceilings, I normally make, just depending, it will be a plain white material with not much reflection or glossiness. So we'll make that about 7 and about 6. Cool. You can give that a bit of a shell, doesn't really matter. Alright. Just try to straighten this view, just so we're able to see more. Okay. Cool. Alright, so for the floor, we'll probably have some tiles here. So once again, we can use our floor generator for this. Cool. So for once again our floor generator, we'll make these, just go back to standard, we'll make these about 800 by 800, and then you just want to not have an offset there. We'll unclick the bevel and make this extruded about just 1 millimeter, and our grout can be about 2 or even 1, because these type of tiles look quite, well, I suppose we can give it about 2. Okay, cool. And then we just want to adjust it so as much as we can to make it equal. So we'll adjust the offset so we can have 2 in the middle, or if we can fit all, let's do it about there, so we can fit kind of 3. And then We'll adjust the Y. Just let this save. Alright, the Y doesn't really matter. We'll just do it about there. Cool, so for our tiles, we've got this infinity matte glazed. We'll bring that in, add it as a bitmap, drop it into your diffuse, and we'll add that. Give that about 8 reflection and glossiness. Alright, so what I like to do is bring the same texture into reflect glossiness, and we'll just go into this and start adjusting the output. So why I do this is just to show where it should be glossier and where it should be a bit more matte according to the texture. So we'll make this about 1,5, the RGB level, to make it more glossy, and then we'll bring the RGB offset minus about 0,5, and you can see it starts to have a bit more contrast in order to show where it should be glossier and where it should be a bit more matte. So there you go. And then we'll add this same one into a bump map. Cool. So that should look fine. We'll see when we start rendering. Alright, what I like to do with our floor textures as well is add a unwrap UVW. We'll open this up just to give it a bit more variance so it doesn't repeat on each tile exactly the same. So we'll pack our UVs, or we'll first flatten our map. You'll say okay. So we see we've got it there, and then we'll pack our UVs. Linear packing. And then we can start adjusting. So you can see we have a bit more variance in our tiles, which I much prefer than it just being repeated. Alright. This works very nice with wood vinyl. Cool, let's just leave it at that.